Here at home, we have an update to a recent vandalism case first reported by 6 News.
The soccer fields on the east side of Lake Zorinsky have deep tracks caused by one or more vehicles. Just 2 days after we aired video of this damage, Omaha police identified a suspect. A juvenile is under arrest for destruction of property and willful reckless driving. The investigation isn't finished. There could be another suspect. The damage is likely to cost us as taxpayers thousands of dollars for repairs.